Hello and welcome. My name is Leah Omar with HR Branches. Today, I'm going to be bringing you some information in regards to the American Rescue Plan Act. This was legislation passed recently. The big focus, of course, was the stimulus checks being distributed. But what many people don't realize is with each of these acts that are passed and signed into law, there are a lot of employer regulations and changes to the FFCRA, which is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that we saw come out at the beginning of COVID, and the CARES Act that apply to you as employers. I'm going to be bringing you highlights today. I won't be diving too much into the details, but if you have questions, be sure to reach out. We are more than happy to help you. Also, with this information, share the love. Share this video on social media, your email distribution list, and anyone that could benefit from this information. With that, let's dive in. With the American Rescue Plan Act, there are primarily three components that we're going to be looking at today. Changes to the FFCRA, the CARES Act, and COBRA legislation. So as far as the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, I'll be going over some changes that were made. But if you remember, this was the first piece of COVID legislation that was rolled out very frantically in the beginning of 2020, but has honestly been a blessing to our community and our country. As you may recall, the requirement for employee COVID-related leave and the paid wages that employers are required to provide ended on December 31st and has been voluntary for most of the nation. However, Colorado employers and several other states, we know that we implemented our own requirements for all employers to continue paying this leave. If you have paid for COVID-related wages for employees with qualifying leave, whether they're out with COVID, taking care of a family member with COVID, quarantining at the direction of a medical professional, or taking care of their children due to school being closed, there are tax credits available to you that were set to expire back in March, but have now been extended to September 30th. You want to make sure that you're getting in touch with your payroll provider and taking advantage of these tax credits because they directly impact your bottom line. These are available to you as an employer. Another change that was made was the tax credit was increased from $10,000 to $12,000, although it's not necessarily more beneficial. The only reason they made the change was because of some rules that Congress had to follow. They had to change from the employer portion of Social Security tax to the employer side Medicare tax. So because that costs more, they had to bump it up. As of April 1st, another 10 days will be added to the total amount of emergency paid leave available to employees. So it's not just the 80 hours for full-time employees that they can take for COVID-related reasons. It is now an additional 10 days. They also added an additional reason for employee paid leave. If your employees receive a COVID-19 vaccination or are recovering from injury or illness related to a COVID vaccination, this is also qualifying leave. Let's talk about how the American Rescue Plan Act has changed the CARES Act. So with the CARES Act, if you remember, there was an employee retention tax credit. This has now been extended for wages paid between July 1st of 2021 to January 1st of 2022. These are tax credits you can take advantage of for retaining your workforce, like finding solutions for avoiding layoffs. A lot of small businesses got creative over the last year with job sharing capabilities, reduced hours, just to keep their employees on staff. So you want to make sure you're taking advantage of these tax credits. You'll also want to leverage your CPA and partners in your business to help with these details. They added a new category for recovery startup businesses. Most legislative programs that we've seen over the last year excluded businesses started after February 15th of 2020. This is now a category for those businesses. It is only available if you have less than $1 million in revenue or saw a significant decline in your revenue. They also added a category for severely financially distressed businesses to claim a credit on all wages paid, regardless of employer size, if they experience a decline in revenue of 90% or more. Here is your reminder. If you remember, when the fluff hit the fan last year, they offered the opportunity to employers to defer the employer portion of Social Security taxes. Well, it is now time to start paying. This was a deferment, not a forgivable loan option or an elimination. You still owe this money. I think a lot of us forgot about this for a little bit, so I want to make sure that this is at the top of your mind, that the first payment is due, which is half of the Social Security taxes for your payroll taxes. The first half is due December 31st of 2021. That's coming up here pretty shortly. And the other half is due December 31st, 2022. You're going to want to make sure that you plan this with your budget and plan with your CPA to make sure that you're prepared to make those payments. We don't want you to be caught off guard come December when you have to make a large payment. Now we're going to talk about COBRA. There are quite a few requirements for COBRA just regularly in administering this plan. However, the American Rescue Plan Act has added a little bit more. So if you aren't familiar, COBRA coverage is a continuation of employee health care coverage for qualified plans. If they were to be terminated, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, they have the option to take over those health payments. This applies to employers with 20 or more employees with a bona fide healthcare program. Now, there are a lot of regular administrative requirements for this and tight timelines. So if you don't have a COBRA administrator and you're manually administering your own COBRA or not taking care of it at all, I do highly recommend that you get one. Now, if you don't know where to start with that, or you don't have a great benefit broker, we know some pretty great folks that can help you out with that. So feel free to reach out. So with the American Rescue Plan Act, the changes that were made to COBRA continuation is that they implemented a subsidy for COBRA assistance for eligible individuals that either didn't elect coverage when they had the chance or dropped coverage because they couldn't afford the premiums. Premiums are typically paid 100% by the employee, so they can get a little pricey. Eligible individuals are former employees that were involuntarily terminated within the last 18 months. What you need to know as an employer is that you are responsible for paying these health insurance carriers for premiums and ensuring that that COBRA continuation continues and there's no lapse. You can claim a tax credit for this cost against your quarterly payroll taxes. The biggest requirement are the notices that need to go out. You are required to send notices to COBRA eligible individuals to make their new COBRA elections by May 31st. The DOL has issued model notices, but your COBRA administrator or benefit broker should be on top of this too. You will also be required to send another notice before the subsidy ends in September within 15 to 45 days of the end date. So there are, again, very tight timelines with COBRA administration, whether it's the regular plan or when there's a pandemic going on. So with the American Rescue Plan Act, there's a lot of requirements and administrative burden placed on you as an employer. Let's recap real quick. I've thrown a lot of information at you, and I want to ensure you understand what the requirements are from you moving forward so you can keep your operations squeaky clean. As far as the FFCRA is concerned, you're going to want to track all employee leave and documentation, which is really nothing new at this point. You also want to ensure that you do not discriminate. If you allow employees for, say, you also want to make sure you do not discriminate. If you allow employees to be paid for COVID-19 vaccination and give them a couple days off to recover before returning to work, be sure that you offer that to all your employees. You want to stay consistent with your practices. As far as the CARES Act, there's really not much going on there. It's just the tax credits that you need to take advantage of. With COBRA, you want to make sure that you're looking back at that 18-month period at eligible individuals that were involuntarily terminated so you can send them notices if you're manually administering your plan. Again, the DOL, your benefit broker, or if you have a COBRA administrator, should have these modeled notices. There are requirements on what information needs to be included in these. The first round of notices need to be sent out by May 31st. The second round of notices need to be sent out prior to the subsidy ending on September 30th. There is a very tight timeline of when you can send these. In the meantime, you want to ensure that you do not let your coverage drop. The penalties are incredibly steep, so you want to make sure that you're complying with this. You really need to bring in the experts to your business to make sure you're on the right path, that you're not opening your business up to risk, and you can sleep at night. So leverage your CPA, make sure you consult with your benefit broker, your COBRA administrator, an attorney, HR and payroll providers, whoever those partners are. Make sure to take advantage of these tax credits as well. That directly impacts your bottom line. There's a lot of stuff here, but lots of good stuff too. These laws have protected who we are as a country and a community and really empowered and enabled us to keep people employed and not completely let businesses sink. So that's it for the HR Branch's special report on the American Rescue Plan Act. Like I mentioned before, don't keep this information to yourself. Spread the word on social media, to your network and community, anyone that could find this information useful. Of course, if you have any questions, please give us a call at HR Branches. We are happy to dive into those details and help you figure all of this out. Until next time.